Welcome to your in-depth weekly astrology overview and the Zodiac forecast for week commencing the 16th of February. I'm going to share with you some of the big themes of the week to begin with. Then on screen you can see the position of the planets. How will they feed into the start of the week? What's the narrative? I'm then going to go through what can be a week of cosmic rock and roll in detail, frame by frame, to help you understand that we're going through a seminal time for us all, person kind. Please stay with me. I'll then share with you each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces, which you can relate to in terms of your ascendant, sun, or the moon. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A very warm welcome. If you're a returning visitor, your views, comments, and likes and hypes are truly appreciated. If you're new here, thank you for joining us. If you could subscribe, please help the channel to continue to thrive. So this is a week which begins with a lot of Aquarius energy, but also the sun in a harsh right angle with Uranus. And that's going to feed into the solar eclipse, the first in 8 years, on Tuesday in the sign of the water bearer, which provides a backdrop energy for the next 6 months. What's the significance? But then, ironically, because the solar eclipse occurs at 28 degrees, the sixth successive new moon at that degree, incredible synchronicity, we then have the sun move into the sign of Pisces on Wednesday. Now, Pisces is the 12th zodiac sign, so it's very much about completion, culmination. So the energy of Aquarius is the collective. It's to do with our future hopes, but it's also to do with our higher values. Whereas the energy of Pisces is deeper, it's more reflective, it's psychological. But then on on Friday we have the exact conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, the first time for 37 years in the sign of Aries. And that's incredibly important. And the reason for that is that they are 0 degrees. So right at the start of the zodiacal journey, the Saturn will take 29.25 years to make its circuit. Neptune, to the end of its circuit in Aries, is 165 years. So we have a new beginning with them. We have a culmination with Pisces, but we have a provocation that comes from the sun squaring off with Uranus that's threaded into that solar eclipse on Tuesday. So on the screen, you can see the planetary positions. I'd just like to share with you about the position of the two luminaries. You can see both in Aquarius because the moon's moving towards meeting the sun on Tuesday. And that's what a new moon is. Essentially, it is a cazimi. It just happens to be a moon cazimi. And so what we have is the sun and the moon are combined, they're in unison, so they're collaborating. But you can also see the moon is not far from Pluto. And Pluto in Aquarius is more recently, particularly, starting to reveal things that have been hidden. And because the sign of Aquarius can be about communication, it can be about the network, it can be about community and collaboration, but unfortunately Pluto can also be about dark forces, power, leverage. But the moon being very close to Pluto at the start of this week suggests there's going to be an intensity as we go into this week. The moon then races towards Mars, and again that can create some very jagged edges. If we encounter someone who sees things very differently to us in terms of their worldview, it may be more difficult to keep our point of view to ourselves. But also on Monday, we do have a gorgeous link between Mercury and Jupiter. Now, Mercury is known as the planet of communication and Jupiter the planet of fortune. But through its rulership and traditional rulership of Pisces, Jupiter is much more to do with spiritual awareness and hosted as it is now, currently in Cancer, about emotional opportunities, security. It is in a retrograde, but it is exalted here. But because it is the traditional rule of the sign of Pisces, there's a mutual receptivity. And although Mercury isn't so good in Pisces, it's detrimented, I feel that if we're tuning into our feelings, but also we're trying to be enterprising and we listen to our hunches, the chances are that can create some very bright and positive developments this week. One of the ways that we could do that may be working from home, or it could be something to do with our family connections, which gives us a little bit of elevation in our spirits. You can also see we do have Venus exalted in Pisces, very close to the North Node. So this is a week when it comes to relationships, but also our financial decisions, if we are guided by our hunches, very much to do with the North Node, that collective pull that we're all being drawn towards, it probably won't let us down. But then later in the week, we are going to have that exact conjunction between Saturn and Neptune for the first time in 37 years. But it's truly a big deal because the last time it happened, they were in the sign of physical culmination, Capricorn, which is about the worldly interface and can be to do with structures, buildings, but also very authoritative energies. In the sign of Aries, it's about a new beginning. But Saturn's not particularly happy here because it's in its fall. The sign of Aries is ruled by Mars, which is very much about action, getting on the front foot and taking the initiative. Mars slows things down, asks us to think much more carefully about how we use our energies. And then Neptune in the mix could be with the fire energy of the sign of Aries, burning off the vapor of the disorientation and, quite frankly, the disinformation that has been so manifest in recent years. So that combination comes to the boil on Friday, but we do need to be conscious that the Sun is in a very strong link with Chiron. And so if we're open to working together collaboratively, that can be for the greater good. But I think that square with Uranus is intriguing. And that brings us to the solar eclipse on Tuesday. Solar eclipses have a backdrop energy for 6 months. Because this is the first in a series, we're having the North Node, which is very closely linked to eclipses, move into Aquarius, reverse into Aquarius on the 26th of July, the true North Node. And that brings in a new 18-month period of where we're going to be pulled, obviously more towards cooperation and collaboration, but at the same time celebrating individuality. But Uranus, of course, the modern ruler of the sign of Aquarius, is very much about authenticity. It's about being genuine. But in the sign of Taurus, where it's been all but for 4 months last year, it has over the last 7 years or so been incredibly challenging because the sign of Taurus is about values, it's about foundations. It can be about land, agriculture, but it can also be about raw resources that we quarry from the earth. Now, whether it's the precious metals and minerals that seem to be very much in the news these days, or it is more to do with fossil fuels, we have seen lots of very quick moving but aggressive energy. And it's not because of Uranus alone being in the sign that it doesn't feel comfortable in, because the sign of Taurus appreciates continuity and Uranus appreciates change and revolution. It's because when Uranus first moved into the sign of Taurus, it was clashing bitterly with Mars from the middle of May 2018 to October that year, which was its first blush into the sign of Taurus. So this is a solar eclipse, which I feel is a bit of a battle. On one hand, all those Aquarius energies are asking us to think about not just ourselves, but also our fellow persons. So the impact of what's going on in the world, the more we can think about how it might be for someone who was born somewhere different and maybe has had a more challenging situation. So it's a bit more of a universal energy. But the glyph of the sign of Aquarius, the water bearer, yet it's an air sign. Why? Because it's very much about communication, but the water bearer is linked to baptism. It's about higher messages being passed on. So it's a higher purpose. It goes beyond the material plane of Capricorn, but it can still have some of those Capricornian energies because It's also traditionally ruled by Saturn, which appreciates long-term friendship, continuity, loyalty, and so on. So I think the solar eclipse in Aquarius gives us a chance to refresh our connections to others, our friendships, our long-term plans, all very exciting stuff. But the exact square to Uranus suggests when it comes to our connections to people who have different value systems, that could create a really abrasive edge. And what I feel that this is a solar eclipse that's pushing us to do is to get rid of what's stale, what's stuck, to release what's no longer working. So there may be some alliances that do break down, unfortunately, over the next 6 months, but there can be others that can be rejuvenated. And that's the way we need to look at it. But in terms of the sun then moving into Pisces, the sun in Pisces is a lovely shimmering energy, the sign of Pisces, co-ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. It's mutable, unlike the fixed energies of that solar eclipse, which really encourages us not to resist some of the changes that are coming, because if we can flex, it will create less tension. But the energy of Pisces is more to do with healing. But I think the energy that comes from that solar eclipse is going to be so intense. For some of us, we may actually appreciate hunkering down a little bit over the next few weeks and really trying to understand at the deeper level what is going on in the world. So if you're particularly sensitive, a degree of withdrawal is going to call out to you. But if you're someone who's very interested in the healing arts, creativity, expressive arts, they're going to be magnified with the particular Pisces season we have this year, especially with Venus and the nodes so close together. But that brings us to that conjunction on Friday of Saturn and Neptune. It really is the beginning. It's a new epoch. It's very, very exciting. But it does suggest that what we want to do going forwards needs to be done so in a carefully thought through way. We had a bit of a taster, didn't we, last year with both Neptune in Aries for 6 months, Saturn for just over 3 months. They were very close together. And what we saw initially was a very brusque, abrasive, masculine, aggressive agenda that seemed to come in that was very intolerant. But I feel there's a lot of pushback going on around that now. And the more inspirational energies of Neptune, particularly, can shape the way that power and structures are manifested. So we are going to see some things perhaps coming to an end with the square between the eclipse and Uranus. Something shook out, but a new order is taking shape, but it may take time to really become clear. Now, if you've yet to watch your February monthly forecast, I really would recommend you do so because I go into much greater depth on all these themes. You can click on the link to go to the overview video and then go on to watch your individual zodiac forecast. And also, if you'd like to talk to me one-to-one, please check out the link below. It's always an honor. And please look at my testimonials too, which are very, very humbling in terms of what people say about working with me. And if you'd like to take advantage of my horoscope reports, it's currently 50% off if you apply at the checkout. Astro 26 for the standard natal forecast and life roadmap. If you'd prefer to have a draconic, soul, or karmic forecast and analysis, there's 50% off them too. Please apply Draco 26 at the checkout. Please see the playlist below to watch your individual zodiac forecast. All the best for this week. Take care and thank you.